state that we are on live streaming COVID-19-esque workshops. Welcome everybody. We have a interesting agenda tonight, and let's start out with a review of the expected READY project cost and funding sources. Paul, I would imagine you and Jeff will be.
Yeah, that just thought it'd be a good idea to make sure everybody's on the same page and where, when, come up with for expected cost for each READY project. I think, Jeff, they all came in a little higher than the initial estimate, which
This
was
is not
done,
unusual for this early of a...
but that initial estimate was done very quickly by the state.
Yes.
So
Speak up.
Oh, I got my speakers here. Yeah, the estimates were done a while ago, but the numbers aren't too far off. Most of them are a little higher than expected, but that's to be expected at this level of detail.
yeah, we could run through them if you want. Like the first one, which is MO 56, which is the Lake Road West End drainage improvements. That came in at $1,549,200, and they originally thought it'd be $1,500,000. So that basically means we'd be liable for 5%, which is $75,000, plus the overage, which is another $49,200. And I think the board should probably pass a resolution to commit to that overage for each of these projects.
So when I'm sorry, but when it goes over, does that mean the state doesn't pick up any of it?
That's right, because the state's
Yes.
grant and this one is $1,425,000, and that's a hard number, I think.
Okay, now you say that's the MO 56 for the West End Lake Road project.
Right.
That's just the road. When you say the Lake Road project, is that just the road? Or does that include the wells and
No. Those are other
just the
projects.
road?
Yes.
Okay, and that road is done, and that monies for that are not being applied to that section of the road any longer. That road's been completed. The County of Monroe opted to not complete that, correct? To not participate in
I
that.
think this is the movement of the road, and
Well, that money has since then been moved to the realignment, correct?
Correct.
yeah.
Okay, so we're,
During discussions,
so that's what we're talking about, not the West End.
No,
correct. But
Okay,
that was
let's make
done by
that,
the
let's
highway
make that
trust.
clarification. This is not the West End. This is now the realignment of Lake Road through the Sandbar project.
Yes,
sir.
correct.
Thank you, Barry. That's
Because I thought I just heard someone say West End.
Paul did say West End. That's
Okay.
why I'm making the clarification.
oh, and it says at
Yeah.
the top, Lake Road West End drainage improvements.
What happened, Paul? Are you aware of this, Paul?
So it's no longer called the West End project, it's the realignment of the road?
The monies that was set aside for that Lake Road project on the West End, that the Monroe County decided they did not want it done,
Oh,
and
okay.
they hired Joe to do drainage issues. They did some elevation, some paving, they did some piping, they put in a couple hundred feet of gutter, and it's done, but it's not.
So we're not doing
And the
it.
county paid for that, correct, Joe?
Yep.
So the county didn't participate or allow any of this money to be utilized on the west end of Lake Road. All that money now is going towards the realignment of the Sandbar Park project Lake Road section.
Okay. So we're still utilizing the funds, it's just for...
Still utilizing the fund.
Okay.
What was sent out to the board members, there's an MO 56, section 2, and it's got 6 bullet points. Who developed this? Was this from the state, or was this you that did this, Jeff? Was this you, Paul?
Yeah, the latest paperwork
Yep.
that we had to fill out for the ready funds included some questions on where the dollars were coming from, and then anything that had an asterisk next to it, because we used a yes or no, to respond to a yes or no question, we had to put on a separate sheet of paper.
I just want to make sure, and I'm tying into with Barry on this one, is that I read that thing, and now that Barry's brought up the west end versus the east end, and I don't read anything in those 6 bullet points that definitively tell me that this road is on the east end in Sandbar Park.
What we've listened to is Matt Chatfield, being the grant purveyor, searcher, was able to take that amount of money and through dialogue, was able to get the state to allow us to use that money on the other end of Lake Road.
Yeah, that's the way I understand it.
Correct.
And I just want to make sure every conversation that we've had on it matches up to now what is in writing. And it kind of doesn't right now, but it just could be
You're
our
still looking at
clerical
the old-
mistakes.
You're still
you know.
looking at the old
Right.
stuff, right?
And, you know, I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill, nor do I think Barry is. I think there's reason.
Well, there's so much confusion, we
Yes.
just need to make sure everybody's clear on this.
Yes, and I would say this, before we move on to the other 3, which we might not be done with MO56, but MO56 is the biggest one. It's the $1.5 million. It's more than 50% of the total dollars of these projects. I would agree that at some point, if these are the numbers, that probably there does have to be a board resolution acknowledging that we're paying more money than we thought on the town side. But I can't say for certain tonight that plus 49,000 is going to be accurate, because based on some things that have happened in the last couple of days, which I don't know if the board is privy to yet. I emailed out, but they may not have seen. We're getting a rebid on the engineering from Pastor Associates, is that correct, Barry?
Yes.
On MO56 and MO59, so it's possible, I assume these engineering costs on MO56 of 145.2 must be spawning off of the previous engineering bid from Barton LaJudas, is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
So it's a moving target right now in that engineering cost. That could be higher, that could be lower based on what Pastoral comes in at.
Correct.
But ultimately, when it does come in and if it's acceptable, I do think I guess that we would as a board have to do a resolution either individually or on the aggregate of all of these that we're acknowledging we're going to be going above the 5% original estimate of monies. Now, along those lines, and we'll, you know, there will be, maybe we can tie that into resolutions that happen at next week's board meeting, because I'm hoping that we'll be able to do resolutions on the engineering for these projects. So, yes, ma'am.
So, Joe, I don't know if you've read the description of this MO56. The projects, what I'd like to know is, I'm going to read it, and I want to know if this is what you have done on the west end. The project seeks to reduce flooding on Lake Road in the town of Webster. The flood mitigation measures for this project include vertical and horizontal realignment of approximately 1,900 linear feet of Lake Road, as well as installation of over 2,700 linear feet of closed drainage with outlets to Arundecoit Bay. Is that what you'd completed?
Yeah, but not to those footages. The pipe, after investigation, and I'm not sure when this was written, but Allison Myers is putting a berm or a break wall all the way around our property, starting at the marina all the way around. Ironically, the topo that the county had from the sewer replacement down there was inaccurate, and I kept challenging them on it, saying last year, based on the 249.1 level, the water was at the road's edge white line. They had that labeled at 250, and based on the forecast this year, I said we're going to be in dire problems because that 250 is in the road. It will engulf the road. Ironically, Allison had just completed through McMahon and LaRue a complete survey all the way up to Fran Beth's house. So we had current data which verified that the elevations were in fact off on the county map. So at that point, a lot of that got modified. The linear footage, total linear footage, was probably close. I'd have to say maybe 1,300, 1,400 foot. The pipe itself was at best 300 feet of modifications to the sewer with an outlet just east of Fran Beth's, which will daylight, and we super elevated the road. We got the road now, even in the rains, the torrential rains, and a couple Fridays ago, that heavy rain we had, there was no flooding in the road whatsoever. It acted exactly like we said, but the footage are definitely shorter than what is dictated there.
So you've done what was described, but at a much lesser degree.
Yes, yep.
Well, and Patty, when you're reading this, I mean, obviously what you just read and you asked Joe, is that what he did down at the west end, right? As you continue on that bullet point, it says, yes, this doesn't start until April of 2021. Are we trying to make sure that the ready monies match the description here of what's going to happen on the east end, and not that what Joe's crew just did on the west end is what that description is?
That's correct. When we had our initial kickoff meeting with all the players from the different agencies, that's when we found out that the county and Joe, our highway department, were going to do the work at the west end. So then the discussion led to, well, we've got this money, let's see if we can apply it somewhere else. And that was through Matt's involvement, because he was trying to get some additional funding for some of those road improvements.
Part of the reason for the county to jump ahead of this too was the fact that that wasn't forecasted to be complete or done till 2021. And with the forecast of the lake levels and what we were looking at this spring, they wanted to jump on it now.
So unless I'm totally missing something, and maybe I don't have what I'm supposed to have in front of me, but Lake Ontario Resilience and Economic Development Ready, additional information, MO 56. I don't see anything in these 6 bullet points that say east or west. Does anybody else?
No.
You just have one page or the whole document? Because it's like a 6-page,
I don't have that.
I'm sorry, I don't know what you...
So
It should refer to the east side.
it should
West
say
side's been
something.
done. Yes.
Because the other question I had for you is, when I read farther into this, we don't need all, the anticipated state fund, town of Webster initial funding. The project requires several environmental and regulatory permits. These include state wetland permits, coastal erosion hazard areas, coastal erosion zone permits, and is located within an archaeological sensitive area. That sounds like the east end to me, not the west end.
Right.
Any work along that shoreline requires permits because it's an overlay of...
I understand that completely.
Oh, okay, I'm just...
But
That,
it also, nowhere in this MO 56, now that we're going to put this money towards the west end, as Barry referred to realignment, there's nothing in here about realignment. It's only addressing the, it's vertical and horizontal realignment of approximately 1,900 linear feet. I think we need to describe this as east or west end to avoid the confusion.
Absolutely.
Well, it certainly doesn't help that the second page of this says, with the numbers on it, Lake Road West End drainage improvements. That is categorically inaccurate to what MO 56 is supposed to be. That's either a clerical type-in thing, or,
But
but the devil's in the details on this. It's $1.5
it
million.
absolutely is. I mean, we've got to have these details
Sorry,
correctly.
go ahead.
This has to be
Yeah.
signed, sealed, and delivered, and it's got to be described properly, or we're going to get screwed on this grant.
Yep.
Because they're going to say, oh, well, no, we thought it was this end.
Our meetings with the agencies, the managing and financing agency, are aware
Yes,
that these were changes.
yes.
Okay, well, I can't vote on it till it tells me east or west end.
I agree.
Well, the good news, we're not voting
No,
on
I
it.
just want to put out there what I need
Yeah.
It needs to
to
be
take a
accurately
resolution.
described.
Yes.
No question about it. Okay. Does anybody have any other comments on MO 56? I mean, I've got my notes that this thing has to be ironclad when we go to vote on everything under the sun, but certainly the verbiage, east end, all that.
So basically, you should say the east end of Sandbar Park.
Right, because as I'm looking at page 2 where it's got the the expenditures in the GL account,
It's
the
still
budget
the
amount.
west end of Lake Road.
It says Lake
Yes.
Road, West End drainage improvements.
Yes.
It's a Lake Road improvement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So you're right, it is the west end of Lake Road if you're looking in from Ontario,
yeah.
but in Webster, we consider it east and west. So
Yep.
that, somehow we gotta clarify that as
Yeah.
to
Totally agree.
where's the starting point and what do we consider east and west?
And I don't think that's classified, like you said, as drainage improvement, that should be road realignment. I don't know if drainage has to be in there for the grant, I'm not familiar with that.
I would classify it as road improvements.
Exactly, but it says Lake Road,
I know
West
what
End.
it says, Patty.
The only
That, what
drainage-
you're reading, it doesn't refer to what we're talking about at all.
No,
You're reading the old stuff, the way it was in the beginning,
I
and
don't
that
have,
has been changed.
I don't have new stuff.
I don't think any of us do.
So we don't even know if what is happening at Sandbar Park is 1,900 linear feet
No, it's
and
not.
2,700 linear.
That
All
is-
of that is referring to the section of Lake Road west of Castaways.
Yeah.
Correct, Joe?
The drainage improvements that was referenced for that, switch it over to the realignment, picks up some castaways and a little bit more. So those numbers are accurate from the engineer's preliminary report. Again, this all evolved as we were trying to do some improvements to the area.
There has been work accomplished in the Castaways area and west of there to the outlet bridge.
And it's great that the county came in and did that, but the problem is, we have documentation in front of us that apparently have been discussed in meetings that has not been presented to this board, so we're looking at inaccurate information with respect to this MO 56, and we really need to have up-to-date, accurate information, so we can have a discussion that we were scheduled to have today.
Accurate description and accurate costs.
Correct.
Well, I hope that's not what we're gonna run into on the next three, as far as description and at least description, whether it's cost. I already, is it okay if I move on to MO 59?
We can beat 56 to death.
I do that, Patty.
No, we all have, it's okay.
First of all, the description is of MO 59 is Sandbar Park Shoreline Protection Project. That makes me feel pretty good that it's accurate on the description. Paul, I don't want to steal yours, they're 17,000 over budget.
Correct.
Or over estimate. And I'm going to be a broken record to what I said on MO 56. This is based on $121,000 of engineering costs that were from Barton LaJudas. That number could change based on what we get from Passero.
Yes.
About all I got on that one.
That's the wall.
Yeah.
Do we have the,
Isn't that part of Passerell's project?
Yes.
do we have the description of that? Like we have for MO 56?
Do it right.
Well,
There is a description that I can get you from the engineer's report, but
Are we good with just shoreline protection project?
yeah, that's what the DEC allowed us to do. They dictated what kind of shoreline protection we could do to keep the water from washing out along that coastline, the lake on Round Bay shoreline.
And it goes all the way down to the Monroe County Pump Station.
Yep,
Yes.
okay. And Tom, that number could still change.
yeah, and like I said, the two projects, MO 56 and MO 59, the two we've gone over, and this is fresh off the presses today, really. Passero is most likely going to be the firm awarded the engineering, but they still have to provide their bid.
Okay. I saw your email, but I haven't had a chance to read it yet.
Understood? Bill?
I briefly got through it.
No, I'm not asking if you got through my email. Do you have any other comments, questions on MO 59 as it sits right now? John?
I'm good.
Okay. MO 61 is the fireboat access docks, West Webster Fire Department.
That's not gonna happen.
This one came in significantly over estimate.
Significantly over.
The intent with this one is to give the West Webster Fire Department the funds that were appropriated. I don't know where the source of that came from, but the discussion with them has always been, we'll give you the money that's available in this grant, but you have to get the work done yourselves.
I think that was clearly understood. My question is, I was absent when this happened. When I left and we were talking to Tom Link and Mr. Dobbs, I was explaining to them that they could not build their dock in a town park. And then I went away and went to Florida for 10 days. And when I came back, it was done. And now it's going in the town park.
We did have preliminary discussions with people from the Department of State
Okay,
who said that could be possible, and we are working towards that.
okay. So the department, the State Department said that could happen.
Absolutely, they said that was a reasonable request.
That was,
Because it's your land and you're allowing them to be on your town land.
so it's kind of like an exception.
Correct.
Okay.
Do you have any emails about that back and forth?
I got I got documents this thick on my desk, I'll gladly,
About this specific?
yes.
Yeah, I'd like to see those,
Okay.
because I know they're very
It's a-
very restrictive on those
Yep.
types of issues.
Well, even just doing the other road, the MO 56, that's requiring some parkland alienation that we're still working through right now.
So is there any documentation so that West Webster knows that these bids that come in over, they're gonna be responsible to have theirs, do we have,
They are aware of it. The two individuals we deal with,
do we have an MOU with them?
there's a draft version that Charlie prepared, and they haven't signed off on it yet.
That's gonna be important, they sign off on that.
yeah, we have to secure
We have 3 MOUs that need to be all
Okay.
finally
What'd you
approved.
say, Paul?
We have to secure the MOU for sure.
Okay.
Because this grant was given to us, so I think we have to front the cost
We have
and
to-
then
We gotta watch the
we'll get
dollars.
reimbursed by the grant and then
Right.
West Webster's gonna have to pay the balance, the 5% plus the excess.
Right.
And when we talked to them the last time, they didn't have any idea where they were gonna get that money.
Yeah,
So we need that, we did get that MOU in front of them pretty quickly.
They may not be
So there's a draft for all 3 MOUs that we have. Charlie worked on them.
Well, the one I'm concerned about the most is West Webster at this point, because you're saying that the bid that came in is significantly over the allotted money.
115,000.
So.
Because they want a 200, they want a 100-foot wide long dock.
Okay, so my point is, they need to understand that, and they need to sign off on that they'll be responsible for the overage, right?
Correct.
And the 5%, and to Bill's point, right? Bill's indicated that they weren't sure where the money would come from, so
That was discussed with them very early on.
I understand it was discussed with them very early on, but the MOU has not been signed by them yet.
Correct.
Show me the money or they won't get the job done.
Right.
And Bill, it's funny, along those lines, I know Paul and I talked about this, there's a potential schematic of setting up a special bank account where the state within a day would reimburse us or wire the money.
Yeah, I
And it's
looked
along
at,
those lines, because I said to Paul, I'm not really, and you're gonna see it on this one and on the next one, where we're somewhat of a, I don't wanna say our brother's keepers, but we're the lead agency with the West Webster Fire Department in the village. There's a very good chance that we're dishing out a lot of money as a town and then looking for those entities to reimburse us. And I'm not really keen on that. I'm a possession's 9/10 of the law type of person. So I'd kind of like the money first, but from talking to Paul, I don't know if we really can do that. We're still navigating that, but
well, we
the show me the money thing is at the foundation of all that.
we could certainly request funds up front from West Webster
And the village.
and the village.
Yeah, Bill, I hear what Bill said, I didn't hear that from them. The impression I got when I left after our last conversation with talking to Tom and them is that the reason they wanted to have, they weren't afraid to spend the money, but they didn't want to spend their money on somebody else's property. So if they had a location that would become their property or license, whatever to them, that their money wasn't an issue.
Okay.
It was an issue if they didn't own the property. In other words, they weren't willing to put any great amount of money up into Allison Myers where they are now because they don't own it.
Right.
Tommy said there was a law that they can't.
I was gonna say, I would think there's some regulations that they can't do that.
Okay.
Right,
Because you're improving private property with government money.
right.
It's illegal.
So, this money up front, show me the money, is this something we're gonna include in the MOUs?
Yes.
A little more technical than that, but yes, Betty.
No, I understand.
The MOU, right, the draft I saw.
That's why Charlie writes things, not you.
Writes my slang language
Hold
into his
on, Paul,
MOUs.
what?
The current draft of the MOU does not say we want the money up front. It says we'll bill you
Yeah.
as we go. So if we want to change that, we should.
So I would look at this as a contract, just like a contract doing construction. You gotta have money, a bond or something covering the cost of that contract. So that we don't get stuck for it, by the town. They're a private company, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, they're independent from us.
We could do a bond, we're looking for money,
Can you do that?
what's,
Paul, could we do
what do we require contractors
include
put
a
up?
line of
Line of credit.
Performance bond?
Yeah, we could ask for a letter of credit, or
Yeah.
Letter of credit, yeah.
Letter of credit, we should do that.
does Charlie have any comments? Because he's writing the MOU.
Charlie, are you hearing this?
Yes, I am. I'm on mute, so I don't have any
No,
feedback.
it's okay, so your comments on what we should put in this MOU, they should show a line of
What are you
credit,
talking about for the fire department?
fire department and the village.
Well, I did the one with the, as far as I'm concerned, the one with the fire department's finished. I haven't, I sent it, I believe, to Tom, to Paul, and to Jeff. Jeff got back and we made some changes, and I did send out a final draft a week ago, actually last Friday. As far as the village goes, that I have not finalized yet. Let's see, I've got a draft, but I think that was a draft prepared by them, I believe.
No, we want to look at that. So you have a final draft on the fire department, but can we change that so that it asks for a line of credit or performance bond or something that guarantees them paying us?
Of course.
Okay.
Letter of
You can make
credit.
any changes you want.
Paul
You
said-
know, it's ours, and it's up to them to sign it, but yes, we can put anything in there we want.
Paul suggested letter of credit.
Okay.
Cash. Cash would even be better. Cash is king.
Cash would be better.
Cash is good. Absolutely.
Well, we probably won't get that, but,
No, I know. There's a lot of giggling around the office, around the room.
yeah, I think Paul has my draft. If he wants to put some wording in and just either even handwrite it, get it to me, or email it, whatever he wants is fine. And then we'll have it, and then whoever wants to send it on can send it on.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
As far as the village goes, as far as the village MOU goes, I haven't really done, I mean, I have it in front of me, I'm looking at it right now. I probably should, like I say, they sent this one over, I believe this is theirs. And I don't know if you want to make changes on it, I can redraw one, and we can do one ourselves. I probably should sit down for a few minutes with either Paul and or Jeff, just to decide exactly what's going to be in there, and then I can get a copy to everybody. So I can do that as soon as tomorrow if you want.
Okay, I mean, considering that we're the ones who are obtaining the funds, I would be more comfortable if it's our MOU as opposed to something they gave us.
I agree. I do too.
Now, are we as a town just giving them that land at no cost to them?
Giving them the land?
For the fire department?
I mean, without like a
I
license.
think it's gotta be a lease or something. I don't think we're giving them the land.
No, we're not giving the fire department anything.
So they're gonna lease
They're
that
gonna own the
portion of
dock,
land?
we're gonna own the land.
Licensing agreement.
They're gonna have to license it.
The thought
I
was
guess
that
it
their
would, yeah, I
docks
guess it
would
would be
tie
some
into
sort of a
that.
license agreement we would enter into, that they get to use it, but they're not gonna own the land.
Okay,
Well, and Charlie, all right, wow, this had more meat on the bone than I thought. So I misunderstood, I thought that the county project that we're not the lead on, they produced the MOU because they're the lead. I thought we were the ones that had produced the MOUs when we're the lead for the village and the fire department. But you're saying
Well,
that the ones we got.
No, for some reason, I have this thing from the village, I've had it for some time, that they sent to us. I don't know when, it says, I'm just looking at the note here, it says, Town Board Liaison, Jude Lancy. And at the bottom, it says Village of Webster, Town of Webster. Like I say, I'm guessing it came from them.
Okay, and then the one with the West Webster Fire Department, that MOU is
That's
something, that's yours, you produced that one.
That's fine.
Okay, I would say this, don't you think we also should tackle in parallel to this, what is the licensing agreement between the town and West Webster? Because our language on that after the thing is
I'm
built,
gonna say one thing though, we're gonna need, and if you see, I don't know if you have my draft,
I don't.
I just added in big letters at the end under your signature, add meets and bounds or a map showing the placement of the dock. I think we need to know exactly where the dock's gonna be. I think we should treat this similarly to what we do license agreements, when somebody comes before us.
Well,
I mean, we can put in there that at such time as the dock is completed, that before use, that the fire department will enter into a license agreement with the town. We can do something like that.
okay, because I mean, I would guess, and to Bill's point, they're a private entity. To me, they're no different than the guys that own the Bayside. So the Bayside pays us tantamount to rent, a license agreement.
The Bayside's a little bit of it's sort of an odd situation because they've been there at sufferance for God knows, I think over 10 years now. Which reminds me, they should have sent me, which they didn't, they should have sent me their certificate of insurance. But anyway, in any event, that's really a continuation of what existed before.
But I guess my point of reference, you can't have one private entity where the town says, you're using our land, we're renting it to you, and then we go and don't have a license agreement and allow a West Webster Fire Department to be there free. That doesn't seem like that would be kosher.
Can I speak to this?
You're talking about them paying us rent.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. I
Is
don't
that
know.
what you meant? I think, right?
Well, we're gonna be taking at least 20
I don't
feet
know.
of our
It's up to
property.
you guys.
that we won't be able to use.
That's something you can
They should pay
do
us
if
for
you
that.
want. I mean, the difference is
I agree.
Bayside makes money.
I don't know how-
Well, I think the fire department may be too, but they're not necessarily, they may make money, but they're not a profit-making institution.
I look at it differently.
You do?
Yes, I look at that they're a taxable entity, we pay them taxes,
Yes.
and if we charge them rent, we're the ones that are gonna pay it. It's not gonna be them. They're just gonna put it in their taxable charges. The amount that it costs for them to operate is just gonna get passed on, so
I don't know, that's, again, that's something, you all can discuss. I was thinking just of a straight license agreement without any cost benefit type, or that, cost, line on there.
that,
Yeah, it's,
and not to oppose what you guys are saying, I just don't feel that way. I think, this isn't a restaurant,
yeah.
this is a fire department.
So they're really not per se.
My
comparing apples
position
to
is, as a town,
Private
we're
entity.
giving away 20 feet of our property for them to use because they want to put a dock down there. I don't think that's right.
Okay?
We told them they had to get their own property, right up front in the beginning. We didn't tell them we'd negotiate to give them parkland to put their docks in. They were told that right from the very first start, they had to find their own place to put it and own their own property.
Were any of us informed that it was gonna go on town property?
This is the first I'm hearing of it.
No, we had a discussion a couple of months ago
Well, yeah, we had a discussion on it.
about the alienation of parkland and whether it would apply.
I didn't remember how it happened, that's why I asked you, how is it that we're allowed to do that?
From that meeting that we discussed the alienation, that's when we made calls to see if being on our property was acceptable.
When you had a meeting to discuss the alienation, where was that meeting and who was
Right,
there?
I remember saying right at this table, because I was explaining about the problem with the West Webster Fire Department
To who?
to all of you guys.
I do remember the discussion,
Yeah.
but we were all under we assumed, we know what happens when we assume, sorry, that everything else we've seen, it wouldn't be possible. So since we just had the 10,000-foot view of alienation, we all know what's involved in doing that, none of us has been brought up to speed that that's actually where it was going to end up, that somebody okayed that.
Well,
Seems a little late to be getting into this now. Because apparently they're under the impression that they have a place to put their dock. Now what we're discussing is to whether or not we're going to license them and charge them accordingly like we would any other private entity. I don't consider them a private entity because they're supported by our tax dollars. We pay for their existence.
I agree with Bill that we're giving them 20 feet of our property, and that never sets well with any of us when we give anybody our property, right? I don't think it's good optics to charge the fire department for that. They're putting those docks in because they're providing a service to respond to calls. I think that's just kind of ugly. I'm not thrilled with the fact that it's going on town property.
I'm not thrilled with the fact that it's going on the corner where our kayak and unmotorized vehicles were going to be launched. Now that's going to be moved closer to the bayside. They're going to be it is taking away space from where we were going to what we were going to utilize. So, like I said, I wasn't here for that discussion, but that doesn't make it any different. It is what it is right now. So we just have to figure out what it is we're going to do with it. I don't know what to say at this point. I am not happy of its location at all, but I would never vote to charge them for it.
I have a question here. I mean, obviously, there's about $2.8 million in total grant money here, and $73,000 of it is this dock. And I've kind of gotten a kick over the last few months that we've spent an exorbitant amount of time on this dock when it makes up 3% of the total monies. What, are we hell-bent on having this happen? I don't even know what the ramifications are, worst case, saying to New York State, we don't want the dock, we're canceling MO 61. What happens? I'm just going to worst case, what happens?
Worst case is we lost whatever money we spent on the preliminary engineering.
Okay,
But if you decide that it's too much headache for the town to administer this, we could just say, we chose not to proceed with it.
yeah. Something to think about, because, you brought up a lot of, the action of this thing being able to be put on town-owned property. We all know what the benefit is. It's good for the town to have a boat dock down there for the West Webster Fire Department. But you've just articulated all the negatives that come out of this.
Well, and I
We
think the
lost
major
use of
problem is,
land.
and Bill said, they were told right up front they need to find a spot. And it appears that there is no spot.
The spot we're using now is on Allison
Between
Meyer's
mayor's and ours, there doesn't appear to be a spot.
And the alienation thing, Patty, I think comes up if we were we're not giving up title to that land, so alienation I don't think comes into play. If we were giving up title to that, then alienation comes into play, I think.
Yeah, it's just, I do remember we had a discussion about, well, gee, I don't really think you can do that on town land,
Right.
because I don't think, that went on and on, because time and time again, we've looked at doing things on town land, and you can't do that. But that was the last discussion that this board had on it. We've not, I didn't know where these docks were going to be.
By the way,
I did.
We have a hard stop at
Yeah, when
7.
did you
Right now?
know they were gonna get put
A
in?
while ago, at some point at one of our meetings, it was pointed out that they were gonna
They were getting
put their
kicked
dock
off
on
of
the end of
Allison's
our,
land.
at the end of our park. That's as far as I went. I mean, I always wondered how that happened.
But we also looked at putting it where the pump station is, but then the improvements to the pump station required more land, so we couldn't use that piece of land either. So that we only had 3 alternatives in our study.
It does seem a little late in the game to be.
I would agree, it's
Throw
gonna
the
be
fish
there, we
back
gotta
in the
figure out
water.
what we're gonna do with
It
it.
does seem late in the game to do this, so I mean, to the point where we already have a memorandum of agreement already drafted, just needs a little tweaking to complete this effort.
Should we move on to the next one?
Where are they gonna park all their cars? In that 20-foot strip?
I don't,
They're gonna have to figure out, they're not gonna have a lot of cars there, I wouldn't
No, I
think.
bet
but
they have
there's
4
a
or 5.
parking lot across the street, so they're gonna move their storage shed near the dock, is what their plan was. Put all their supplies, like pumps and things like that they put in an existing shed. It's already out there, they're gonna relocate that. And that's why we pushed it all the way to the,
It's gonna be
To
in
the
front of
west.
the dock, I believe.
yeah, right.
That's the way it was gonna be, wherever
Right.
the dock was, that's where it was going to be. They're gonna have to park right there.
Yep.
You can't park in the parking that we're gonna have for the park because that's for all the residents.
Right.
If you start letting them park in there, when they have drills or whatever, you're gonna have people complaining.
Typically, they said they get 3 cars because by then they have to take off in the water and go after and do whatever the rescue is.
Well, if we have to make that agreement with them and let them know that they're gonna be limited to 3 cars or 2 or 3 cars, and otherwise they're gonna have to carpool to get down there.
Yep.
For drills,
Yep,
obviously, for emergencies, nobody's gonna carpool.
true.
But I don't know what their operation is, I don't know
I don't either.
who operates the boat, I don't know how many people come to it, I don't know any of that.
That'd probably be outlined in the MOU,
Okay.
Yeah.
or the lease agreement, license agreement, sorry, the license agreement.
Matt, are you familiar with that at all? Very? Can you? What's that? There you have it, right sitting amongst us. Good.
So, I mean, a minimum of 2, maximum of 4, you know, up to 4 cars. That's for emergency response. For training, you could have 6 or 8, because we'll rotate people out. The thing that I'm curious about is, are you gonna put the lift on it? Because they have lifts on the water right now, so we'll get a lift at the end of the dock.
Is that in the $115,000? I don't know what,
They have a lift.
It didn't consider a lift, and it is a floating dock.
It's a floating dock.
Yes, because of the fluctuations in water level. So that was their preference is to have a floating dock.
Well,
With
but
a,
will they still have a lift? So
Yes.
we have a floating dock in Stony Point too,
they proposed to still put in a lift.
so there'll be a lift. And then the other question is, will there be public access? A 100-foot dock is a very long dock.
Yes.
It's a very long dock. I mean, will it be, can the public go on the other side? And, because maybe part of the issue is that the public can use it, and it's not such a big deal,
Right.
right? I mean, a 100-foot dock, you can put 3 or 4 big boats on,
Or you can also use it to launch
kayaks.
kayaks and non-motorized water craft.
Because that was our intent for that
Right.
usage in the park, would be
That-
to non-motorized.
Right. That is in the drawing of Bayer's proposal,
Right.
is that's the kayak launch.
I would have to venture a guess, and I'm just guessing. They're not gonna want the public using that dock.
They don't. You're right. They want to put a gate, they want to put a fence around it.
But there's not a fence there today.
But the kayak launch would still be there. There was never any discussion about eliminating that.
Got some work to do. Charlie, you got a lot of work to do.
Did you hear that, Charlie?
Charlie hasn't got the work to do. We gotta meet with them and discuss this.
Yeah.
I'm here, you tell me what I need to do and I'll do it. I mean, I'll redraft the memorandum of understanding, and I'll put in the wording about the letter of credit. Paul can give me the exact wording he wants or how he wants it, and I'll put in wording about a license agreement, that a license agreement has to be entered into. Anything else you want to have put in?
Yeah, my concern is that the
I think we
biggest
need to sit and
concern-
talk with them to get a description of what it is they plan on building.
And to let them know what,
Like I say, I want to have minimally, I want to know exactly where it's going to be. That has to be attached to the memo of understanding.
and then I think Barry's point is correct, we need to have a meeting because they need to know what's in our heads on this license agreement.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's up to you, and I think that's a very good idea. Before anybody signs anything, they should know why they're signing it, what they're signing. Sure.
What?
I don't know if they have an attorney. They do. I'd be glad to meet with the attorney. If they don't, then I think maybe a number of you or a couple of you maybe meets with them, a couple of their representatives, and works this out.
Paul and Jeff, are all these projects, I mean, they're not all like 1, 2, 3, go, and they all start and all that at the same time. They can be staggered.
They are being staggered. The only thing is the one with the road, the governor asked that we move that up because it's a nice showy project.
Yeah. No,
So
I
it was going to
remember
be in
that.
2022, now they want it in 2021.
I'm just trying, I don't want to hold up the other projects because this $78,000 dock.
They're all
which,
separate
as I've said,
projects,
I
and we
just-
can,
It has taken an exorbitant amount of our time
yep.
compared to the other
Mine too.
2.7 million, but I understand why. Because we may have a lot more that we have to figure out before we're willing to commit to this. And I just
Well, why
don't
don't-
want it to hold up the other ones. In
Right.
fact, you know what the funny thing is, on the engineering, I can't seem to figure out, it's $5,000 on the estimate, and from the discussions that we've had with the engineering firms, I don't know if either one of them has owned that engineering. Do you know?
That was because we combined all the projects into one seeker application. So they tried to assign a value to the West Webster Fire
Gotcha.
Department's docks,
Okay.
so that they paid their proportionate share of the seeker costs.
Right. Well, at least on my end today, certainly for Castro, if everything works out, is doing the engineering on MO 56 and MO 59. And Barton LaJudas is, as we move on to MO 65, that's the one they're gonna stay with, assuming they can sharpen their pencil and all that. But certainly I didn't get the indication that anybody was like chomping at the bit of those firms, oh, I want the dock. It's kind of an outlier.
And that's why we put the
We were
schedule
gonna have
for
you
that
do the engineering,
way out there,
Bill.
because I know they didn't have enough money.
No. So,
Why don't we do this? Why don't we move MO 61 to our next workshop,
yeah,
where we can all sit down together and discuss and hammer out what exactly it is they want to build and
You
what's
want
in our
Tom Lincoln,
minds, and
Mark
so we can all get together on it, so we can get a description and move forward.
and Tom Lincoln, Mark Dobbs, and/or Mark Dobson come?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so if everybody's okay, moving on to MO 65? little bit different format from the first couple pages because there is a split between what the village has into this versus the town. You'll notice, and I'm a broken record on this, the two engineering line items add up to about 170,000. I don't know what that number is gonna be. Like you had said, Barton and LaJudas must have done a bid for engineering that kind of just assigned dollars to these projects, but now Barton and LaJudas is only going to be doing that project.
Correct.
Now, logic tells me they would come in at the same thing they assigned to it, but I don't know that.
They did a very thorough analysis. Their folder or study was probably 60 pages.
Okay.
It was, so they had already put a lot of thought into what needs to be done at the pump station.
Okay.
And then the village's engineer did the same for the wells. They come up with their number, and then we just prorated the shares based on both of their numbers.
And the over budget on this one, at least from these numbers, is,
About 55,000.
it's a combination of the interfund
Total
transfer.
55,000, Paul?
Capital.
In total, 26,000 for the
26
town
for
and
20, yeah.
about 29 for the village,
Yeah,
Okay, so the village is into it for 29,000.
over and above the 5%.
yeah, they're actually into it for $40,000, Bill. Because their 5% is 10,371. Plus the 29,000 overage.
And are they aware of that?
Yes. But that was their engineer, and this was discussed at our meetings.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, what you just said, so am I looking at, did I just make a comment a few minutes ago that's wrong, that these two engineering line items of 99,819 and 70,521 for the village, is that under Barton LaJudas, the village one, or is that gonna be Labella?
No, that's Labella's. Through the village, but that's where
Okay.
we get the money.
So does Labella, are they doing all the engineering on this MO 65, or is Labella doing the village portion and Barton LaJudas was encompassed in the town portion?
That is correct, the second option. Both split.
Okay. Anybody have any comments, questions on this one? I take it, Charlie, this is an MOU that we created? No, you said that the village, Jude sent it over, so that'll be interesting to get.
I did not create it, and therefore and it showed up on in my office, so I'm assuming that the village did it. So what I'd like to do is, like I say, spend a little time with Paul and or Jeff, just to, they can give me their points of view, and I could incorporate it, and I could write one up.
Okay. Okay, so these four projects, one, we're not doing really anything on as we dovetail to next week's board meeting, because we're kicking it down to have a workshop to talk to the fire department about it. The other three, I think minimally next week at the board meeting, there will be hopefully resolutions about the engineering awards. I say that because I think we got some tightening up to do in bids and all that. I don't know. I mean, we can't vote on anything until you see the MOUs, and I don't know if we'll have the MOUs ready, no pun intended, ready by next week.
Well, we have to. We have to have them ready.
Well, you're gonna have to meet face to face at some point with them just so to iron out the
The thing we're lacking
details.
right now is preliminary engineering from Passero, and they said they'd have them for us at latest thing tomorrow. So after that, we just, there's the three items that we can, are we supposed to vote on them next week? What exactly are we voting on?
Well, I assumed that there's three issues here. We thought we did the voting on a resolution of awarding the engineer on April 16th. I won't get into that.
Right.
It's almost as if that didn't happen. So we gotta re-vote on who we're awarding.
We have to amend
you know,
we have to
and,
amend.
You know, authorizing the
Rescind
supervisor.
that resolution and. Or amend it. Or amend it.
We'll talk to Charlie on what is the best play, a rescinding of a resolution and going with two new resolutions, or modifying that resolution to say, these are the two firms and now it's split up. We'll let Charlie do it.
All the clarifying resolution too.
Okay, and then you got,
If that's what it, I mean, we may make a change, we make a change different if we clarify, because it's not clear that we call it a clarifying, so.
to Paul's point earlier, and I think I agree with him, but I'm the rook still here, we have overages on all these.
Well, that was gonna be my next question
Right.
is, how do we plan, it's $300,000 almost exactly over.
It is.
Well, that's what I'm seeing.
Jeepers, Barry, where did
Between
your
the
project
projects.
come from? I got 49 grand right now on MO 56.
Engineering and total costs are $2,985,000. The total grant is $2,684,000.
Yeah, we had to pay
Oh,
5%.
well, we knew we had the 5%. I'm going, what is the overage of the 5%? I think we were,
Oh, what is the overage of the
Right.
5%?
Correct.
Okay.
yeah. and
Not the total
I think
project.
right now with the numbers,
I
assuming,
misunderstood.
you know, you got 49,000 on MO 56, 17,000 on MO 59. I'm not even gonna touch MO 61 right now, because we'll talk to the, fire department. And then you got our portion is 26,000 overage on the MO 65, which, so 26, 17, 43, and 49. It's about $92,000 overage for the town than what we were thinking we would be paying on our 5% to the DASNY grant. So that, to me, I think is what we would eventually have to say, we're okay with that. And then, Paul, you've said, then where does that money come from?
Correct.
Right.
We still have that MO 78, which is the one from the county, that we are acting as their agent for $250,000.
Yeah, but I don't think we wouldn't be responsible for any overage on that, right?
No, but my point is, they're paying for a portion of the seawall with this money. That's what they
Portion
wanted
of the
to protect.
seawall.
Yeah, they wanted to protect their pump station. So they're willing to contribute to our project. So that's an additional fund that we have available to us through an MOU with the county, because they've done all that they want to do to the pump station itself.
Okay, the wall is about $750,000, but the continuation of the wall into their place is their $250,000.
Correct.
So the total cost of the wall, okay.
So you're saying that might reduce our costs on
Correct.
MO 65?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
How would it reduce our costs on MO 65?
Just that you have the additional $250,000. Not on 65, it has nothing to do with
No,
65.
that's it would
No,
be-
this is back
The wall, MO
59.
59,
Okay.
59, yes.
Okay. Okay. If, because where we're at right now, and John has already left, I think he's not coming back.
John had a work emergency and he apologized. There was a flood in a home that somebody just moved into.
Okay. And because Patty has a hard stop at 7, and this went a lot longer, but it needs to be really gone over with a fine tooth comb. It's $3 million. So it was worth the time. I really do believe that. But can I, and Paul, and you were here for a lot of reasons tonight. We needed you certainly during that discussion. I would like to push the quest, the 3-in-1 off the agenda for tonight.
Okay. I
Okay.
think it's only going to be about a 2-minute item, but that's okay. We
2
can talk
minutes?
about it
You really think you can, and you're assuming that none of the board members will ask any questions then?
This is true. It's probably a bad assumption.
Well, I'll make a deal with
Well,
you guys.
I'm willing to give you 2 minutes.
I don't want to ask any questions, so you don't have to worry about verbosity, but Bill, Barry, and Patty
I won't ask
are
any.
open.
I'm-
Have at
I'll
it,
tell you
Paul.
what, if we have questions, we'll continue the discussion in another
Okay.
meeting.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, we had Tyler Frame from 3+1 Consulting speak to us in regard to what his company can offer, and that is, cash management. They could possibly identify savings through bank fees and increase our interest earnings. But it comes along with a fee of $15,000, so I don't know, in today's environment, I think it might be a little tough to recover that whole fee. Rates have dropped so much. This is just my opinion. So I'm just questioning whether it would really be worth it at this point. I agree with that. I mean, I do my best to invest our money. I have most of it right now in New York Class, which is like a mutual fund for governments, and we earned about 0.5% last month, which doesn't sound great, but T-bills are only paying like 0.10 right now. So, I can shop around maybe for some longer-term CDs, see what I can come up with. I heard that there might be some deals out there. So, I don't know. Any comments? I mean, I just don't.
I'll be honest with you, I didn't see how they were gonna get us any money.
Yeah, I know. I think it'd be nice to have everything analyzed, but it's hard to really get comfortable with whether they'd be producing funds for us or not.
I'm in total agreement.
And I agree as well. I thought it was a nice presentation, it was a good idea. It's nice to hear. Maybe you can come back at another time. This may
Yeah.
not be the time to do it, and you're the guy that, to me, I listen to when it comes to stuff like this, and if you're not comfortable with it, I'm not comfortable with it.
Yeah, I think it might fit in well if we were shopping for a new bank. They can really identify the best deal out there for bank fees and things like that. But, so I'm inclined to pass at this point.
That's pretty
I
good. That
second
was
the
2
motion.
minutes.
All right.
It was good. It was 2 minutes.
Told you to be quick.
I know.
All right,
Got nervous, didn't you?
I did.
Okay.
2001 budget item.
All right, well, I'm glad you were here, Ahmed, for the boat discussion, or the,
Captain.
but you really came because you're intrigued about the NEQUELS and WIDA contracts. Are you here on behalf of WIDA? Yeah, I know. I was busting your chops. I don't know how much there is really to discuss on this, because, and Paul, I don't want to put words in your mouth. You suggested we put it on the workshop thing because as we are entering into budget season right now.
Right. Just trying to get out ahead of it, that's all.
Yep, and where all the meetings have been scheduled, as you, obviously, the board members as liaisons to certain departments. Those initial budget meetings are, I think, starting next week, or is it the week after?
Week after.
Week after.
22nd.
So Paul had said, you should look at some of the other things that are kind of non-departmental,
Right.
but they're things that we've done in the past, such as our $25,000 that the town pays to Webster Economic Development Alliance, at least annually, at least in 2020, and the $50,000 that, what, did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
And then it was the WIDA one, and I don't know.
And now we know what it is, the Webster Economic Development.
WIDA?
Yes.
Yeah,
Matt Chatfield is the executive director of WIDA.
Say that again?
Matt Chatfield is the executive director of WIDA. And, Barry Howard is
Yeah,
one
I
of
know,
the.
we all know about it, we just didn't.
So you know all about
read it.
Okay. I think it's an amazing organization and we should market it more, but that's another story. And NEQUELS, which is, there was a previous discussion in a board meeting about the history of, what the town has done annually to NEQUELS. And obviously how things have changed over the years, not only in the dollars, And I forget what the highest amount was back years ago, 150, and then it went down, okay. And then I know the board, we were like, well, what's the difference between neat quals and WEMS and all that stuff? And oh boy, now wait a minute,
You keep talking. But
What's in the bag?
it's not ticking.
like I said, now I am putting words in your mouth, Paul. Those are two
Thanks so much.
non-departmental contracts that were, well, Doc, yes, the other day we met with Joe Parisi, our insurance agent.
Correct.
All right, because I'm sure there's gotta be $700,000-800,000 of premium that we pay, so as we go into the budget, we needed to talk to him. So, you're not being singled out. We're looking at everything on this 2021, and I will say this, in light of what's going on in 2020 and the uncertainties of where we're at, yeah, we're looking at everything.
I'm gonna ask for more. I mean, the reality, so.
You can ask for anything you want.
Right? I mean, the reality is that, you know, I put some bullets down, but we are, what?
Hey, you need to cross the blue line.
You know, the reality is that EMS in this town and frankly in this county is wickedly underfunded. The community, so it doesn't matter how they get the money, whether it's West Webster's Fire District, Northeast Droid's Fire District, Penfield's Fire District, or the town funding the police, we give almost $8 million to 2/3 of the first responders in this community. $8 million. I get 50,000 and I have to fight for it. We ran 6,000 calls last year. That's more than all the fire departments together. We staff the fire department on that side. We're running most of their calls. I'm getting less than $2 per citizen in the town of Webster. They're getting $200 a citizen. When COVID blew up, who stopped taking calls? The 2/3 that are getting $8 million. Who kept going? Us. Who has to figure out every month how to make payroll? Who has to ask Paul every 2 weeks, please, I'm begging, I have payroll on Wednesday, I need a check today. This is not logical in any way in the world. And so, yes, I understand we are a private company, but we're a public service, right? We're not a private company to make ourselves money. No one leaves with a tax benefit or, you know, a big financial payout at the end. We finished with $14,000 in our bank account last year. On a $2.6 million budget, that's as close to the razor's edge as you can get. And so I want you to understand, since Supervisor Flaherty, you're a financial guy, flip to page 2. Let me show you our dilemma, because you have to understand how the math works. Mr. Dean, I can't see you. You're in a terrible spot. You made a comment a moment ago that, hey, if we just charge rent to somebody, all they'll do is increase the taxes. I don't have that opportunity. In the police department budget, you budget $250,000 of overtime. You plan for going over budget in their budget. And I'm asking for $50,000. Let me show you. So look on page 2 if you wouldn't mind. Remember, NEQ is the paramedic service that provides intercept for both West Webster and Webster Ambulance. So we have to think of Webster Ambulance as its own entity because it really is its own entity. We just operate it for you. In 2019, so just in 10 months, because we changed our billing company, so only had 10 months of quick data, we billed out $499,000. We collected $164,000. Now, Tom, you were a businessman for a long time. How many businesses run on collecting less than a third of their outgoing revenue?
That's pretty bad.
That's pretty bad. We wrote off, in the West Webster side of town, if I annualized it, $186,000. I'm begging for 50. I can't do that anymore. We wrote off $186,000. On the west side of town, where we have a commercial ambulance that's functioning properly, even then, we wrote off 62. So on the half where the commercial ambulance is functioning as it's expected to be, we're writing off more than the town is giving us for the whole town. In aggregate, we wrote off $240,000. We can't run a business like that. It doesn't work. If you flip the page and go to page 2 or 3, you know, when you look at the WEM side of the business, so where it's operating properly with NEQ, we are writing off at most 12%. I can live with 12%. Year to date, we're at 9%. On the west side of town, we are writing off 40 and so far 27%. On the east side of town, we are writing off 12 and 9. Those are staggering differences. But in aggregate, it's an incredible amount of money. And we need help. It doesn't seem fair, and fair I know is a funny word, that 2/3 of the first responders get $200 a citizen on average, right? If you do the math for the number of calls by taxes, they're getting $1,400 a call. I'm getting $4. How does that make sense? We need help. The community has to support EMS in a fashion similar to the way fire and police are done. We are paying fire and police to stand by, whether they get calls or not. I only get paid when I take a call, and when I do get paid, I'm getting less than 50 cents on the dollar. That is a very hard way to balance a budget every 2 weeks. And that's what I do, every 2 weeks. I've become a cash flow management expert like you can't believe, and Paul knows, we're here knocking on the door. Please, payroll is on Wednesday. I need the money today. In the meantime, guys are building docks and doing this and that. We're not getting anything. The town has to look. Henrietta's given $1 million. Brighton, $380,000. I mean, there are communities that are, I would say, super funding. Penfield gives money. Now, some towns have a unique arrangement where it is, come to us at the end of your fiscal year, tell us what the deficit is, and we'll fund you the deficit. That makes it a random number for you, plus or minus a little bit. That's how Brighton works. But we can't be at $0. Either we have to figure out a tax district or some taxing entity, or we have to find some other way. But this deficit it's breathtaking. When I saw these today, I did the math twice. I was like, this can't be right. But this is the math I balance every 2 weeks. The fire department doesn't do that. The police department doesn't do that. Last week, Tom, when the county asked for ambulances to go stand by during the riots, at the bottom of their note, you will not be reimbursed. So I, in my moment of not thinking, I sent a reply all to everybody on that list and said, are the sheriffs and fire department not getting paid? They're getting paid overtime. EMS will not be reimbursed. We have to fix this inequity, or else we won't survive this way.
I wonder if there's such a thing as an ambulance district.
There is.
We
That's
just
what I
check
was
with the
just
Office
gonna
of State
ask.
Control.
We have it in Penfield. We are an ambulance
Yeah.
district. Well, sorry, more correctly, we are a special use district in the town of Penfield. So
Correct.
the town of Penfield is my ambulance board. Supervisor Little Fountain, I give him my numbers, and last year he took me from 12 to 20. This year I'm going to ask him to go from 20 to 25 or 30, right? I show him the numbers, he understands, and he can just pull it up. But remember, that comes into your tax cap.
Right.
Because
It's in your tax cap?
Yes, sir. Because in New York
Unfortunately.
State, there's no entity as EMS in statute,
Well, special districts should be exempt from the tax cap, but they're not.
but they're not. So I just want you
It's
to
a
know
bubble.
it's in your tax cap. But if I ask for $200,000, which I'd really like to get, that's $5 a person in this town. That is peanuts in the grand scheme of things. That is peanuts, right? We spent how much, Joe, on the road on Lake Road? $1 million and some dollars.
Well,
Somebody did, right? Somebody's tax money did. Someone spent $1 million and some dollars there, right? We're spending money in places, and I understand there's all these places. All I'm asking is that I don't want to have to balance my budget every 2 weeks. It's a tough way to run a business. A business that is adding, if it wasn't adding some value, I'd be okay, I'll figure it out until I can't anymore. I think we make a difference in the community.
I'm gonna,
I'm gonna go sit
no,
down.
I mean, you know what, I'm trying to think how to say this without sounding like a jerk, okay? But I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a
Sure.
second here, okay? You need to understand, NEQ is a separate entity from WEMS. Is that correct?
So, yes and no. WEMS is,
No.
WEMS is nothing.
Very good.
WEMS does not exist in the world. WEMS is a piece of paper from the Department of State that says you may operate an ambulance. The town doesn't
That's what we
operate.
just got back in January.
Yeah. So the town doesn't have employees to operate an ambulance, so you had a choice. You can either staff up and buy equipment and create an ambulance, or you can contract. So you contract with us. And so we operate that ambulance for you. We started that ambulance with no expense from the town of Webster. We get no money from the town to operate that ambulance.
So, is it safe to assume that it's one entity that files 990s as a non-for-profit?
NEQ files a 990, correct?
And NEQ encompasses WEMS, because WEMS is just semantically,
No, we contract staff.
They staff it.
We staff it.
Okay.
And operate.
but it's not a separate tax ID number or anything like
It's
that?
actually the town of Webster.
Okay.
Because
So,
we actually.
I've heard you say many times, we do $2.3 million in annual billings. I'm not gonna, I can't figure that out from what is a 15-month, I think, schematic that you showed here on page 2 and 3 to get to $2.3 million.
I'm just showing you a piece of the penny cube. You're not seeing Wen's revenue.
Okay. So at the $2.3 million, and it comes down to a $14,000 surplus, profit, surplus, whatever, okay, which is razor thin, right? Razor thin, right? And this is where I'm gonna play devil's advocate. So when I go and look at those 990s, and I'm very familiar with how non-for-profits work, you can get down to $14,000 by paying the executive director $1 million a year. So and I don't want to speak for the rest of the board members, I'm not adverse in your passionate plea. I gotta say, there's no question, it's wonderful. But I'm gonna need a little bit more auditing and some history and all that stuff, you know, and to understand all of that before I would have any gumption to increase the number.
You're free to look. What question would you like on the 980 that I can't tell you from my head? I know it. Right? The board of directors are volunteers. We have 3 chief officers that drive their personal vehicles to work, except for one. He is our chief, and we have it for command incidents. The others share a vehicle. I drive a 2013 Chevy Malibu I have in my pocket. I get paid to be the chief executive, a very nominal sum of money.
Like I said, there was no way I was gonna say it that didn't come off as a jerk devil's advocate. I'm not questioning your lifestyle and all that stuff. I'm just saying
We aren't wasting any money.
that before the town says, oh, that's an impassioned thing, and it sounds, and this presentation looks great, we should give them $150,000. We should go and do what Henrietta does and give $1 million. I'm not there, I'm just being honest with you. I would have to see more, and I have auditing experience, and I know what I would want to see. I can't speak for Patty, Bill, and Barry, but there'd be a lot more that I would want to see and peel back the onion before I could sit there and say, you know, we really do need to fund this.
Well, let's see it.
Yeah, tell me which one. The books are open. No, but I mean, I don't, but Tom, I mean, the 6 lines you care about are right here. Don't worry about how I run my business. Worry that no matter what I do, those 6 lines don't change. That's got nothing to do with my 990. I'm losing $150,000.
Well, and I gotta be honest with you, okay? Don't worry about how you run your business. There's something about this being a private business that I'm like, when did private businesses get government subsidy as like a, you know, it's just a given? I get it. This is, and I don't mean to be insensitive, an ambulance to me is more like a government service. But is it safe to say that 10 years ago, when all of a sudden the fire departments couldn't charge for their ambulance service, that is what spawned private-owned ambulance services?
Monroe Ambulance is celebrating 75 years. Corning Ambulance is celebrating 100.
Let me rephrase the question.
What?
How many private ambulance services were prior to 10 years ago when it was, I don't know if I would call it deregulated, but when all of a sudden the fire departments who used to be able to send ambulances out now couldn't bill for that?
So 17 ambulances in Monroe County are all private. And they've been private for decades. Prior to that. Pittsburgh never had an ambulance. Penfield never had an ambulance. Barrington never had an ambulance. Brighton never had an ambulance in their fire department. Henrietta never had one in their fire department. They've always been private entities separate.
So how does Monroe Ambulance, which I'm very familiar with, because actually my father insured it for many years, how do they fund?
Through third-party billing. Right?
How do they make money?
Same way we do. Same way we do.
Well, is third-party billing including getting money from our towns and municipalities?
I don't know how they have contracts anywhere, but they also have Medicab. They also do
And
training.
like I said, now I do feel like I'm being a jerk.
What a jerk.
I am. But if Monroe Ambulance is a private-owned ambulance and is getting third-party billing and no government subsidy, if I'm hearing correctly, from towns or municipalities, would you consider that your private-owned business is a similar structure and entity to Monroe Ambulance?
I would. I'd also consider it similar to CHS, which is getting $1 million. So which coin would you like to be on the side of? Right? And Monroe has contracts. So one of the things they do differently They contract to the hospitals. We can't do that. We don't have any hospitals in our town. They have the entire transport contract for all of Rochester Regional. AMR has the entire transport contract for AMR, or Strong. Every patient that comes and goes there goes by them. We don't have that opportunity, right? We don't have contracts with the nursing homes. We don't have Medicabs. We don't have that opportunity. Ours is a very well-defined, because of our CON, to the town of Webster, whatever revenue we can generate out of this town. That's what makes it different than Monroe.
What revenue are you getting out of Penfield?
I'm sorry?
Does our CON cover Penfield?
No, but NEQs does. We cover the Empire down to the Bay and down Danbury Road to 5 mile-ish about. So we
Okay.
cover a piece of it.
I'm gonna step up because you guys are leaving me to be the real deposer here. You know that?
No, your questions
I
are
don't, I
fair.
don't wanna
I know, I'm teasing.
You know,
I'm trying to lighten things up a little bit.
I'm glad you are, Barry, because
What does Penfield give NEQ?
They gave us 12, they raised it to 20 last year, and we're gonna ask for 30 this year. But they're also a fraction of our call volume. Right?
So when I look at these numbers, I see a huge discrepancy from what goes on with WEMS and NEQ
In West Webster.
and West Webster and NEQ.
Yep. And the reason is because West Webster can't go.
And that's where you're really hemorrhaging.
We're dying. Right? And that's what the $50,000 was for.
How do we fix that without throwing more money in it?
It's a question for another day. Thank you.
But
You
maybe
have
it's
to
a
leave in 9
question-
minutes, we don't have time.
Maybe it's a question that we need to delve into.
Well, I mean, there are a few ways, right? So one is, the town has, when we created WEMS, we said we would be second call on that side of town. So we are giving up however many calls they take first out, that WEMS isn't getting.
How many do they take, do you know?
So in 2019, it was about 1,700 calls, so it's 64% of their call volume is EMS. So a little bit more than half. So those calls aren't coming to us. Those calls get taken by a volunteer ambulance, which can't bill, and then, so if you're not reading all my bullets, I take a Medicaid call, so someone without health insurance, the drug overdose in the Wegmans bathroom, the drug overdose in Walmart, I go to all those calls, I get $0, I can't even bill the patient. Those are charity calls. Who's helping me pay for those? Right? Then we go to Medicare. Medicare pays us sometimes $83 a call. It doesn't pay for my fuel and my staff. Right? So that's where we get into trouble, is out there, because when you're going with an ambulance that can't bill, when we go on the east side and the west side, we can bill at an ALS rate, and we get paid at the rate. Bless you.
Thank you.
So not to belabor the point, but the answer is I need more, not less. I need a lot more. And you can see why. This is not just asking, I wanted you to have facts, because I know you're a numbers guy. Right? I wanted you to know where we're bleeding and why. This isn't us driving 15 Chiefs cars, it's not fun. There are $30 million of firehouses in this town. I'm living in a 4-bay garage. I have no bedrooms, I have no kitchen, I haven't even figured out yet how to pay for my building. How does that make sense in this town?
Who does the transporting for St. Anne's and them?
Cherry Ridge?
Yeah.
So if it's a scheduled transfer, typically Monroe has that contract. If it's an emergency, then we, West Webster gave up.
You get emergencies.
Yep. I mean, I put it down to $1 per citizen. I'm asking for $5 a person. It's not a huge amount of money.
We originally paid this money to help them cover their shortages, and over the years, we've reduced it from 150 to 50. It doesn't appear that the shortages have reduced. I don't know.
Started a bad trend.
I like the idea of getting an ambulance district, but I know that keeping under the cap is difficult enough. And there's times when we can't get under the cap, and there's times when we can. I don't know. Just a thought, maybe this is the time where you don't get under the cap because you're supporting this endeavor, and maybe it's not. And we fought like hell to get this. But I'm with you in looking at the numbers to make sure that you're comfortable with it, because
Well,
Look, my to-do list has gotten longer and boo-hoo on me, that's just, but one of the things that I always wanted to do, because of my own experience a couple years ago, is understand how you bill, because a couple years ago, I got two $700 bills from being taken to Rochester General from that Holt and 104 Dunkin' Donuts in the gas station there. And when I got two $700 bills for an aggregate of $1,400, I thought, well, it's gotta be a duplicate and whatever, and I called the Roy, you know, where they did the billing, just, no, it's not. One's Northeast, one's Wems, whatever, Webster. And we bill $700, and I'm like, whatever. I was busy doing my thing, and so I paid it.
Well, your insurance covered.
No, because a high deductible, you're gonna pay it, okay? Every action has a reaction. That's one of the negative sides about low premium, high deductible plans, is you will pay those bills, all right? So now, I heard when I was campaigning, I've heard from people, we have an older contingent in Webster. It's very upsetting when they get those bills. When they call in and say, I don't understand why I got that bill, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, I'm kind of in the same thing as you. I don't understand why I got my bills.
Because it was
So
a type of call. If you'd said you'd stubbed your toe, you only would have gotten one bill. But they might not have saved you either.
Well, I need to understand that. Well, thanks a lot.
Well, no, because they couldn't have, they wouldn't have sent the proper people. So when it's a call of you can't breathe, a heart issue, things like that, now you need the advanced life support. If WEMS or West Webster comes, they can't provide advanced life support. They only have, I might be going in a dangerous place, but they only have EMTs, not paramedics. So
Okay.
depending on the call you get.
Right, and I just want to, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure in about an hour over coffee, Ahmed or what could explain it to me. It was on my to-do list.
I think I just did.
Then you probably did, but you know what? There's a series of other, because people have said, hey, they came out to my house, I said I didn't want to go to the hospital, I still got a bill. I want to make sure I understand all the different scenarios, so when people do call Kim and me and say, hey, I have a bit more understanding, to explain it.
And one of the things I think that's relevant to the topic that I hear all the time is, why don't you pay for the fire department? Yes, absolutely you do. And you pay for the police department. You just lose it in your taxes. We're a fee for service. You have to pay for us when you use us.
I mean, I'm going to ask a question that might not, I don't know, if it's politically correct or whatever, and do we have the perfect storm here that Webster does have, on average, a pretty large contingent of senior citizens? And of those senior citizens, the ones when you get calls to, you don't get paid.
Well,
Many.
not true.
You
There's
want
also,
me to speak up on that behalf?
please.
My mother flatlined 2 years ago on her birthday, and they defibbed her 5 or 6 times. I think they're ready to pronounce her. They brought her back. 7 days in the hospital, she was back home. She turned 89 last week.
John, I think that's fantastic. My question was, and maybe I didn't ask it the right way,
Let me answer
is
your
if they're on Medicare or Medicaid, and I always get that confused,
Medicaid is when you have no income. Medicare is when you're over 65.
which one do you not get paid on?
Medicaid. Not a dollar. Can't even bill it. On this side of town.
are you-
That side of town, we bill it to the end.
So you're losing money on your Medicaid calls.
And our Medicare bills.
Why are you losing on the Medicare
So
calls?
reimburse us at $83 a call, we charge $5,000. How's that for a differential in your calculation?
It's only what they cover.
That's federal, they don't recognize advanced life support intercept because we're not transporting ambulance. So the difficulty on this side of town, right, the problem is on the west side of town, very clearly, right? It's $186,000 on that side of town versus 62 year to date. So the difficulty is that because they don't bill, so on this side of town, when, as Patty was saying, when we show up on that ambulance, we make WEMS and ALS ambulance. They bill at an ALS rate, and then they pay an Q out of that. That's how that side gets covered. On this side, because they cannot generate a bill legally, because you're paying taxes for it, right? Then we have to bill the patient. The patient says, "F this, I didn't ask for you to come, I'm not paying." And that's where we get stumped. And you get me. So not only do we have a difficulty, but there's a line here called trying to collect from private pay, insured self-pay medical deductibles up to 15 months later. We are chasing bills from January of 2019. How's that for your cash flow management? You can't even budget for that, right? So, Tom, you get a $700 bill, I'd like to get paid in 30 days. You say, well, you're not gonna, or I'm gonna keep the check that I got and deposited. I have to take you to collection 9 months later. In a year in 2021, you pay me $250 out at $50 a week for 5 months. What, that money has no value to that point. I'm dead, right? The healthcare system is broken. It is absolutely broken. And we are the lowest of the low. Even through all this COVID, as you know, they declared the essential services, EMS wasn't even listed. We're not even considered, right? People don't think about it, but we're a vital part of the life change in our communities. And Webster has proven that. As Mr. Dean said, we fought long and hard to get Webster in here. You have the best response rate in Monroe County for EMS, bar none. 98.6% with my coverage last month. Nobody's doing that. And our response times are better, but we need help. I mean, this is real numbers.
You know, and we did fight long and hard for this, but the discussion all the time was, we really believed that at some point down the road, this town needed an ambulance district. Because we had a real conundrum with the west side being treated one way and the east side being the other. And the vision for this was somewhere down the road, and we may not be sitting at this table, it might not be us when that whole ambulance thing comes to fruition, but that was always discussion, that that really would be ideal, and this would be the first step towards it. I'm not the only one who heard that discussion, was I? Everybody's looking at me.
No, I'm
Billy's either studying his flip-flops or he fell asleep.
And it's just difficult because I understand their need,
I do too.
but we've got 19 departments that have needs.
Everybody needs.
At some
we all-
point, we gotta say either no, or we're gonna say, let's raise the taxes $5 to get the money that they need to do the things they need to do. So that's something.
When you
the board-
say raise the taxes $5, does that go from a $5 rate to a $10 rate?
I think he's being facetious.
Well, I just wanted to make sure you
See the
understood what you
number
meant by
you add up.
$5.
We're at $4.16, I think.
520.
520. We're gonna be $8 to cover all the costs that everybody's asking us to cover.
So I think also,
So this board's gonna have to make a decision.
Right.
Who's gonna get the money for their piece of the pie? That's what we're up against. That's what we're gonna have to decide.
That's where we are
Every budget, but I'm just laying it out there so we all understand where we're working from.
so I'm going to bring this back if I could, because my hard stop was 7.
Yes.
And we haven't addressed the other 2 issues to which I'm liaison, and I probably should be around. So and I'm totally appreciative of this. You and I have talked several times about this, as we're both aware. The agenda was to discuss the contracts. We haven't even gone to WIDA yet. Hell, some people just found out what it is. So, you know, this isn't something we're gonna solve tonight, and this isn't something we can promise anybody tonight, but it's just background for going into our budgets. And you can take time to look into the 990s and get your head wrapped around the numbers, and I'm sure Ahmed is very open to discussing all of those with you.
Almost current, but
Yeah. And we just need to keep this in mind as we move forward.
I mean, I hear you, Mr. Abbott, but I'm asking for $5 a person. I'm not asking for $4 per thousand. I'm asking for, in the grand scheme of pittance, if we did a tax district and you did it right, we could get it so that no Webster residents ever paid out of pocket. There are models to do that, right? You're paying for insurance. That's what you're paying the fire department for. It's what you're paying the police department to. Let's hope I never use it. In my case, you're using me 6,000 times a year. I just bought an ambulance the other day for $5 grand. That's all I had to spend. $5 grand. They're $180,000. I'm begging and scratching to keep this, to keep us moving here and keep ambulances going and everything. There comes a point at which you say, guys, you gotta help, right?
You bought it for $5 grand?
Yeah, I bought a third-hand ambulance.
It doesn't look like the Ghostbusters vehicle.
No, we'll sticker it up and it'll look beautiful. You'll never know. But we shouldn't have to run that way. We're a life-saving entity in the community. And I'm living on brownies and bake sales. It's killing me. So I will tell you whatever numbers you need. You tell me and I'll give them to you.
I'm gonna get with you because, and like I said, not from a deposition standpoint, I need to understand it better.
And there's a lot, ambulance districts been talked about before here, obviously, I wasn't involved in that discussion. West side, east side, Medicare, Medicaid, all of those things, and I gotta get it down on paper and make sure I understand. Maybe you guys all do understand. I don't.
Can we do a special workshop just for that? Can we have a, no, I'm serious, it's a 2-hour discussion. I'm not kidding. It's taken me 20 years to figure it out. But it's,
I reserve judgment on that one.
I think that by the sounds of things, Patty probably understands it better than any of us because she spent a great deal of time with you talking about it. I understand some of it. I know the purpose of it. That's what's important to me. I don't have to understand all the nuts and bolts, and I know what the purpose of it is. And I would be all for a district, like a fire district. That, to me, makes a lot of sense. It's another tax, but
it only works if Webster's not providing
Yeah,
EMS
as long as
services.
West Webster stayed in the business, we can't have a district.
Right?
no, you can. You can have it on these.
Well, it could be an east side district.
Well, yeah, but.
I'm gonna, look, and
Okay.
I'm gonna just throw something out, and not to be the last word, it's not what I'm trying to do. And Joe, your story, that's wonderful with your mom, right? And all of us want the best ambulance service and call times and all that stuff for our citizens. I don't think anybody is saying that. It's a private industry. And it's similar to what I said about, to ProSAR when they came in here asking for $4 million. You guys got all these people, why don't you set up like the library did, a, board of directors for a fundraising entity? Because the library, there will be people that want to give money to the library. I'm not doing that with the highway department because I don't think that people want to give money to the highway department. People would give money to Parks and Rec. So, doesn't it seem like you obviously must have gone out and did fundraising to build your private entity's building at $1 million, $1.5 million, or whatever it costs? You're an impassioned person, gets up here or whatever. What type of efforts have gone into explaining this situation? And I don't even think you would need a separate entity. You could get fundraising and donations for all the reasons that you just gave us.
So you lived in the Webster for 5 years at least. You've probably gotten at least 5 of my fundraising letters. How many times have you donated to me?
I gave you $100,000 last year. Oh, no, that's not. Okay.
I have sent out a fundraising letter every year since we bought the land on Jackson Road.
Mhm.
I barely recovered my investment on mailings. Because everybody thinks it's covered by taxes.
Yeah.
That's the difficulty.
I mean, you're a talented guy, but there might be some validity to having some type of firm that could show you a different tack on how to go out and get fundraising on that.
We asked grant writers, they won't help us. We can't get any money from the ASC grant because we're not a fire department. I've done this for 20 years.
Okay.
I mean, this is not.
But I'm just saying that, if anything, I'm consistent. I said this to ProStar, I said this to the library, you can't just come in and ask for money from us. I want to make sure that you're maximizing every, I'm a God helps those who help themselves person. I just want to make sure, and I'm not, look, who was the guy now? I can't remember. Scott, the grant writer.
Scott.
I'm going to turn you on to him, all right? Because I want you to sit down with that guy because, they're for the Parks and Rec
Parks and
Department.
Rec, open space.
The difference between an entity like that and us is we are providing a community of first response service, right? We aren't doing something that somebody else can come do. No one else can come do that business in this town. Because
Okay.
it's UN.
And Patty, you need to get up north, and we do need, but I'm going to just tell you this, okay? And maybe I'm way off base. You think that Joe Herbst and his family have very good feelings about Nichols and Wems based on what they did for their mother, who now is thriving at 89 years old. You think they do? Is it possible that situations like that might also have, and I mean, it's not just donations, there's what are they called? Bequests or whatever. Entities get, the library, that organization, Paul, didn't they just, someone passed away and in their will gave 40 grand to the library. Because there is an entity that's out there marketing for fundraising, and it's not just sending out letters, is my guess. Nothing against the way you did it.
But he probably couldn't use that for operating expenses.
Oh, I don't know that. I mean, you know.
I'm just guessing, probably couldn't, but.
It's, yeah, it turns out. Obviously, much longer question. All I'm telling you is, this is my problem. How you can help me, I don't know.
Okay,
But it can't be less than what we give me today.
okay.
Thank you.
Well, you can't go anywhere, because you cut them open, and now I'm gonna go for more blood.
Okay, you guys stay here. Stay here. Please do that. I'll make sure you.
You better run. Or get a rig outside.
Patty, when do you have to go? Because it's 15 minutes after your deadline.
Well, I got 2.5 hours in front of me, but let's go.
Are you driving by yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, for God's sake. Okay. I don't know if the board got a chance to look at the 9-page attachment.
Yeah, I got sick.
Huh?
I got sick to my stomach.
I just want to make sure you know that I wasn't the one that produced it. You look at him.
I
Well,
know
that's
who,
what you asked for. I went right by your checklist.
I know who produced it.
Okay, well, do we start with Joe talking about it, or we start with Bill elaborating on what made him sick to his stomach? I'd rather go to Bill, if you don't mind.
I understand Joe's dilemma, but where are we gonna get that kind of money? He wants $1 million this year, $1 million next year, $1 million the year after that, as a minimum. That doesn't include wage increases that he's gonna have. That doesn't include health increases that he's gonna have in his department. I mean, we can only spend so much on the people. So he should prioritize exactly what he has to have this year to get by this year. And I guarantee it's gonna be $1 million. This board's gonna sit there and say, Joe, we can't give you $1 million.
Well,
I'm just being honest.
No, I was gonna say, I think that that's going to have to be our budget approach with every department this year. I'm not gonna single out Joe.
I'm not, no, I'm just saying, every department's gonna sink, police department's gonna come in, they're gonna want.
Every department is gonna have to come to us at budget time with how little they can get along with.
They're gonna have to come to us with what they came to us with last year.
If.
A zero increase in,
Yes.
total budget.
Which is tough because we've held them to that so long that we're getting behind on all the schedules, and we're all well aware of that, but,
I understand.
yeah.
But
It's a difficult discussion to have, because we have a feeling that's so ingrained in us was keeping our tax rate as low as we can possibly can, and that's our purpose. That's why we're elected. It's one of the reasons we get elected, and yet we're growing at a pace. We've been growing at a pace that our support for our infrastructure is not keeping up with.
So this year we.
The cost of our, in Joe's case, in the highway department's case, the cost of our equipment is going up every year.
Ridiculous.
Beyond belief. We need to have more employees to provide the service that our residents require, because we can, and we've done everything we can possibly do to reduce the cost of the labor needed to accomplish that, by going to one-man trucks, by going to shift work, by doing all those things. We've improved our services, but we've fallen far enough behind where we're not able to keep up in the fashion that we have in the past. And some of our residents are very vocal on that. They don't understand that when you get 2 feet of snow between midnight and 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning, that you're not going to be able to get all the roads clean by 7 o'clock. They don't understand that, and nothing you say will ever make them understand that. So we have to do the best we can to see that we're well-staffed and well-equipped. And that costs a lot of money. And the same token, we need help from Joe and his department to make sure that they're operating at a maximum, that they're utilizing everything they have to the best of their ability, that when we get something new, when we replace a piece of equipment, that it is what we need, not what we want, because we can't afford what we want anymore. We can only afford what we need. And when I see some of the things on there, like an excavator with 3,500 hours on it, that's something that I'm going to look at you and say, no way. Unless you're telling me that that thing is ready to die, that 3,500 hours has killed it, that's not acceptable. My training, my thinking is 7,000 hours is when you replace equipment.
It'll be at 6,700 hours when we go to trade it.
Okay.
You're right on the mark.
Okay.
And that's why it was out where it was.
I know our trucks only have 170,000 miles on them when we get rid of them, but the hours on them are unbelievable. And think about this, 170,000 miles on a vehicle driven around the town of Webster. Okay?
An average this winter alone, we only ended up with 80 inches of snow, but because the temperatures hovered at freezing, we ended up with 83,000 miles on 24 trucks. 83,000 miles on 24 trucks. And it's all based on temperature. I would rather it be 10 degrees and 5 inches of snow than 32 and freezing rain.
In order to support your need for your equipment, we have to make county work a priority. The revenue from the county work is what supports our highway department. It's what keeps us going. We can no longer turn down we're a hired gun. We've always been a hired gun. We travel to Parrington, Arundecoit, Brighton, to do Henrietta, to do jobs for Monroe County, because not only are we well-trained, we're capable, we're well-equipped. We need that revenue, and it's going to come to a point, and I've had the conversation with the county highway superintendent and with the county legislator that's next to us, that represents us. If we can't get this work to support us, we're not going to be able to plow your roads.
Joe, didn't you tell me yesterday that you're looking at several contracts with the county and
Yeah,
it's
I have
starting to turn the other way?
5 sitting on my desk right now. We were supposed to meet yesterday with the county boss, but unfortunately they had their stomach flu. So
Sign them.
No.
Sign the contracts. You get them back to them and get the guys out. It's June.
So, yes, but COVID has also put a little blanket over that. So that has also hindered that. And our focus were on lake levels and Lake Road, which was a county road.
I understand. I know that lake levels and all of that, and I know it's all important, but our survival relies on relies on that revenue.
You saw that.
Yep.
Right? And that shows you right there. And if you look at 2017 to 2018, our Director of Finance continued to increase the revenue line when we knew, and I told them that with the federal monies supporting the county contracts, that we were alienated from participating in county work, and that county, or that source was going to, it's like a pendulum, you know it. It goes high and low. But I knew with that federal funding, we were going to be alienated from those jobs, and that revenue would be down, yet we increased the revenue on the budget side, and I knew we were going to have a shortfall, and that's why 2018 and 19 were both in the red, whereas the rest of the years were in the black. But that federal monies is...
Did we turn down any county work?
No, we never have.
We didn't turn down Harris?
County work. What's that?
We didn't turn down Harris Road?
So that's Penfield. That was a Penfield job. They're already here. They had 2.5 miles. Yeah, we did. We turned the shoulders down. But we didn't have the time to do that. That was just shoulder work. It wasn't anything there. We supported trucks with it. Huh?
Not the paving.
So, no. But that was also 2.5 miles of road, and there was less than half a mile in Webster. They're already on the route.
Well, like I said, Joe, we're a hired gun. We need the revenue.
desperately need the revenue.
I understand your request for all this equipment, and I'm not saying that we don't need it. Obviously, we're getting there. We need it, but we need the revenue to support it. It cannot be any more simply said than that. We need the revenue to support the request for equipment. If we can't get the revenue, then we can't have the equipment, and we can't do the work.
In which case then we tell the county, you better take care of your own roads.
Well, and the other thing is when we're not doing county jobs, we're not training people to do that kind of work. Eventually, if we continue down that road, we won't have people that know how to do that kind of work.
Sure we do. We got all that work right here in town.
I'm just saying, if the things that they give us for reconstructing roads and all that kind of stuff, we learned that doing jobs for the county.
No, I
Yeah.
disagree. We
Well-
have town roads every single year that we totally rehab. Mill fill, 14,000 foot of pipe.
And we learned how to do that by doing that for Monroe County. We didn't used to do all that work. We never did those on our own. Not complete jobs like we do on Shoecraft Road. What a beautiful job. We didn't have that expertise until we learned how to do that stuff. Not Shoecraft, Shoemaker. We learned all that stuff doing all those other jobs. When we realigned Hard Road with Shoecraft Road, we knew how to do that because we did all those jobs for Monroe County, County Line Road, things like that. We learned how to do that, and if we stop doing them, if we don't continue doing them, in a period of 5 years, I mean, look right now, I've been gone 13 years. I go down to the department, I maybe know a half a dozen guys. In a very short time, you're gonna lose that expertise in how to do those things.
By next year alone, we have the capabilities of losing 9 more. We
Yeah.
lost 9 last year, it's 18, that's 300 years of experience.
Right, I understand.
Understood, but
What's
also
our-
realize, the guys coming in have more capabilities and technological capabilities than we do. They're setting up tins, they can run equipment by GIS. I have, trust me, I have. So we're doing more with less. We're doing the same amount of work with less equipment, less men, because that technology has filled that void. We have not lost anything as far as our skill level, without a doubt.
How many, it looked to me like you were down one person, staff-wise, from your numbers?
Well, if you look at it, no. Where do you want to compare it to?
I was looking at 40, was your number?
40 was in '07,
Right.
and we lost from there. We were 41 in '08, 39, 40, and then it got down to 30. At 38 was probably an average.
38.
Yep.
So you need at least 2 people.
Correct.
And you've had the
Yes.
okay to get 2 people.
Right.
And you haven't got them yet.
No, because COVID, I can't. And the 2 applicants I had already had applications in other towns, got hired. They just started last week. They had already done their interviews prior to COVID. So, but that's again, I've been working with Carla. We've gone on Indeed.com. We have ads all over the place. And I'm not alone. All 19 towns are having the exact same thing. No different than the 4A license for the sewer. Trying to find blue collar.
They don't want to work.
And even the I don't want to say millennials because that's not correct, but even the hires who come in, they're not even there a couple months and they're gone.
Yeah.
They don't want to sweat.
They don't want to work. They don't want to do any physical labor.
Well, I'm sorry to hear, I recognize that fact, but I also know that it's an awfully good job. It's an awfully good job. It pays well. The benefits are there. The security's there. It's a good job. And if we don't have kids that want to do that, I don't know what they're going to do.
Well, the only
Because
saving
you know
grace
how it
is
used to
the
be, we used
technology.
to have stacks of applications and they couldn't wait to get there and talk to dozens of past employees that are now school teachers, wish they'd stayed.
Well, and I'll give you some, in the past 6 months of the ones that we've interviewed, don't pass drug tests, they're 12 points on their driver's license. This is what's coming at us. It's a completely different animal.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tom.
You know what, I mean,
If you see me shaking over there, it's not because of the conversation.
Freezing in this room.
Yeah, 2 highway department guys are talking back and forth. I'm learning. Now, with that being said, I want to go back. I want to make sure I understand. First of all, Joe, and I appreciate you got this together
Quickly.
You're not as good at producing stuff as what Ahmed is, but we'll cut you some slack, okay? I don't know if Bill wanted to throw up because of the numbers or because of the, I mean, it's.
Well, when I look through it and I see his requests, understand he needs all that, but the reality is, there's no way we can give him all that.
Well, and that's, here's the thing, I wanna make sure I understand, I'm comparing apples to apples. You have 3 years where there's $1 million of equipment, 21, 22, and 23. Okay. Now, what I wanna make sure I'm comparing apples to apples to is if you, in the 3 previous years, got equipment of $1.5 million each year, then he's actually asking for less. Now, it's an exaggeration to make a point. I wanna make sure I understand page 5, where it
Which
says
document?
Highway Fleet History.
Highway what?
Highway Fleet History.
Okay.
In 2010, it says 500K out of 5.7 million. Does that mean that we bought $500,000 worth of equipment in 2010?
Wait, you're on highway fleet history?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 2000, that's for the decade. That was, yes, actually, there were, we had
For the
bonded.
decade?
So, well, I was never, no, that's actually towards the end of 2009, 10, we had bonded, equipment on that as well. We had the grader
The grader we bonded,
and,
and loaders.
sweeper, I think it was. I think it was
Okay,
this
well,
one.
what's-
We bonded.
2020 says 540K. Did we have in the budget $540,000 this year for equipment?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So, on the good side of this bill, he's not asking for an additional $1 million. He's asking for an additional 500,000.
And what sparked this,
No.
remember, was the 350.
Now, okay, now I want to just make sure I understand something else here. Then what is 2000 number 14, 62K, 2000 number 16, 62K? I take it those are numbers that are associated with a piece of equipment. Where it has the number sign next to it. Same document.
Yeah,
All right,
those are the truck numbers.
that's what I figured. So in 2020, down at the bottom right-hand side, I got 2020 number 16, 251K.
Yep.
And there was another truck to be bought, that's what made up the 540,000 of the budget.
Correct.
So would it be safe to say that in 2019, we spent $445,000 on truck 21 and 24? And then in 18, 225, 17, 209. So the last 5 years, it's been somewhere between $200,000 to $500,000 budgeted for equipment.
Correct.
Trucks. And then on page 1 of this 9-page document, you hit us between the eyes with a 3-year going forward of $1 million a year, which made Councilman Abbott throw up. And I kind of, now that I understand it, I see why you did.
But we start with that, a number close to that every year and knock it back down.
So what
Take
I'm,
your word for it. 'cause
yes,
I'm new
I'm trying to gain back, well, not gain back, but gain back lost ground, because we have thrown stuff out year after year after year, and we've gotten to the point of quit asking. And I totally understand the budget, the total budget, and the tax cap and the whole nine. I'm not naive to that. But we are so far behind, at what point are we gonna spend more money to catch back up?
Because I don't want my friend Patty to be driving at midnight, okay? I don't know about you, but I start to get bleary-eyed driving at that time of night. So we gotta get that.
I just don't like the deer that are out there.
Exactly.
They don't-
When it gets dark,
Well, they
And
seem to.
they come out right about now to feed you, you know? They come out right about now to start feeding.
I quit riding at night, I quit
Is this an
riding at night.
oversimplification? Because we're not gonna solve the problems of the world today at this meeting.
No,
But may I throw out these 3
Throw out
genres?
up, right? That's what we
Okay? I'm gonna start with genre 1 of personnel, okay? Because we have had other meetings about this, and with your potential 9 or 10 people retiring, which are on the higher end of the department, and from what you guys have explained to me, the highway department is a move them up, move them up, move them up, right? Do I understand that
Yeah, it's
correctly?
a pyramid, absolutely.
Okay, so those, I don't want to say younger guys, the guys lower on the organization chart will move up. And when they move up into that position, they're not going to be paid at that position the same as the guy who retired.
Correct.
All right. So we've talked about there might be some potential to get you your wish of more personnel, but maybe do it such that at least in the first couple of years, it hasn't really changed the aggregate dollars.
Correct.
All right?
Correct.
Now, we also have talked about, but then as years go on, it would naturally go up because of the raises and stuff like that. I get it. But to solve a potential personnel problem in the first couple of years, trading out 3 for 2, or whatever it would be, could have an effect.
2 for 1.
2 for 1's a tough one, I would imagine. Because aren't you getting rid of somebody at $100,000 and hiring 2 people at 50,000 plus, and the one you move up? Anyway, but theoretically,
It's 35.
You're thinking a wrong department when you're talking 100,000.
well, I was doing round numbers. You know what I'm saying. So, but even Councilman Abbott gave me the, So
You have the right analogy.
thank you. So that's genre 1. Genre 2 is one that I gotta say, Barry, you had me at hello when you said revenue. Because yes, I am looking at all these departments and coming from a business background, I salivate at where can we get revenue. Now, some departments don't have a chance for that, but the highway department does. And I get the catch-22. I think it is, if you don't have the trucks, you can't get the jobs. If you don't have the jobs, you can't get the trucks.
Right.
All right?
It's a circle.
I got it. I would say, and I'm with Barry on this, sign every goddamn. Darn it.
You almost made 2
I didn't, Karen, it took, you know what? You can't.
It's always me that brings out the best, huh?
No, it's not just you. We're gonna put a jar up there.
Yes, she did.
We're gonna put the cuss jar up there.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about
And
quarter.
we could save some money in this town if we would bump up the thermostat a little bit, I'm just saying.
And really, to tell you it is kind of cold. I'm with Barry, sign every contract under the face of the earth. In fact, in sales, a lot of times, they go out and they'll sell 100,000 widgets, and then they come back and say, okay, we gotta figure out how to make these widgets. Maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree, but we go out and get these contracts, sign them, and we come back and we figure out how to fulfill them. Barry, Bill's shaking his head yes at me again. That's 2 positives in a row, Bill.
Yeah, he's just cold.
Okay, so now on the genre 3, and it might be the perfect handoff to Paul.
Here we go.
Could we somehow balance your desire, need, wish, semantics for these $1 million a year in the next 3 years in this equipment, which I totally understand if we got that equipment would support the revenue we're going to chase, right? But we're using a benchmark of around 200 to 500,000 the last 5 years. But is what Paul has researched as far as the fund balances of B and A that heretofore we have never really explored to be somewhat of a, I don't know if it touches the tax cap the way you're about to describe it. The risk of this is, I think if you get all that revenue jobs, then is it the A fund that's down to about $100,000 the fund balance, and B's got the
Right, it's the DA fund, which is highway townwide.
right. So let me ask you this: if you go and borrow, or however you do it, fund borrow off the DB fund, which is around $2.1 million fund balance.
Yeah, about 2.5 is available. It would not be borrowing.
We would not be
I'm
borrowing?
going to have you explain
Want
this
me
in a
to
minute.
I
describe
can't hear you, Paul, so.
I'll describe it. So I talked to Ed Grant, who heads up the Rochester office of the State Controller, and told him the issue. Told him that the Highway Townwide Fund owns all the equipment, and he suggested that you would actually charge essentially a rental fee. So in other words, the Highway Per Town Fund does things like they build the roads, They do the fall leaf pickup, they plow the snow. The only thing that's currently charged to that fund is labor and materials. There's no charge for equipment, even though the equipment's owned by the Highway Townwide Fund.
And used for those operations.
Yeah, so Ed Grant suggested, and it's perfectly legitimate, to essentially charge the Highway Part-Town Fund, the DB, for the use of the equipment to plow the roads, pick up the leaves, and build the roads. So that would create revenue in the Highway Townwide Fund and additional expense in the Highway Part-Town Fund. It would provide additional funding in the Townwide Fund to purchase more of the equipment that we need while creating expense in the DB fund. But it works because the DB fund has been the beneficiary of sales tax revenue for the past number of years, and they've built substantial fund balance in that fund. Currently, about 2.5 million is available. We came out ahead by about 800,000 in 2019 in that one fund. So I could see our way toward maybe allocating 400,000 between the two funds and giving Joe more funding for
using that
equipment.
fund balance,
Then we would have to appropriate more fund balance in the DB fund
Right.
to keep the tax cap in line.
you raise the
But
fees.
they have
in-
the fund balance.
You raise the fees in the one side to build up the fund balance in the other side.
That's basically it. And it makes sense because
Mm-hmm.
DB is using the equipment, so
Right.
they should rightfully pay for it.
And Paul, if, and it's a big if, we get all this revenue, because we go out and bid all these jobs, and we got all this nice new equipment, and we can fulfill the contracts, would the DA fund potentially in a couple of years now not be at $100,000 fund balance, it would be at $1 million because of the revenue that we're bringing in from those jobs?
Yeah, the DA fund balance would start to rise.
And the DB fund,
Would help.
unfortunately, because you said it's been a sales tax driven thing, welcome to COVID-19,
Right.
we're into a unknown, although you know what, before the budget process is over, I think, Paul, we're gonna get a chance by early August, mid-August, to see the effect of the second quarter on sales tax.
Yeah.
Which I would think would have been the worst quarter, because aren't things starting to kind of accelerate on opening up as far as commerce?
Yeah, and you had a lot of
You know.
online spending too.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're down about 25% in April,
So,
which isn't that bad. Bad, but
I just want to look over at Councilman Abbott, because I got two of these, and I don't think he's cold. Did you understand that third genre, how maybe we could do a compromise where he doesn't go to a full $1 million of equipment, but there's some happy medium there, and it's somewhat funded, if you want to call it, from what Paul just described, which I don't think affects tax cap.
no.
He's not given that head shake.
It wouldn't affect tax cap, but we would be appropriating quite a bit more in the
Fund
highway
balance.
part-time fund than we have historically.
I understand what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And one of the things that makes sense,
If you don't get the revenue, then you don't get a new truck. It's that
one of the things that makes sense about charging the trucks, the cost of the trucks, is that the whole purpose, the majority of our purpose of owning so many trucks is to clear roads for plowing. That's the purpose. We don't have to, if we don't have that much mileage to clear, we don't need that many trucks.
We already have them rated, but because of the work we do for the county. So we know what one of those trucks costs to drive down
They
the
pay you
road.
per hour. What's a 10-wheeler, like $55 an hour? That's what it used to be,
73.37.
73
So
an hour.
So $73,
58 for 6-wheeler.
so for every hour he's out plowing, that $73 an hour can get charged against the DB fund. And that draws revenue over to his DA fund. But you can't recreate it now.
I had no doubt that you understood it, but voodoo economics also, you are starting to deplete the DB
Right.
fund. And the only way this works, and to some extent, it's life is risk in a lot of ways, is it'd be great if we had a crystal ball, we could look out 5 years and say, hey, guess what? The fund balance in those two combined is 3 million plus. Because right now, I think combined they're 2.2 million plus.
2.6.
Yeah, about 2.6.
Oh, is it really? I thought you said
0.5 plus
There's
100.
2.5.
2.6 available, there's actually more than that. It's actually more like 3 million, but so
Okay,
it's
then
reserved.
redo my example, if the combination of them was $4.5 million, we must have done something right in totality between those three genres that I described. We maximized revenue, we were able to get new equipment and do that configuration, and we did a 3-for-2 body split. That's the wrong way to put it, personnel split, that replaced the retiring guys, which is about 25% of your staff, it looks like, in the next year or so. No?
It'll be like 46% of my staff in 2 years.
Yeah, I said 25% in the next year, so, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all great in theory. I have no idea how you codify what I just described and Paul described.
I do have to leave now.
I don't blame you.
Okay.
I think we may be done for the night, ladies and gentlemen.
It's getting dark out, I gotta get home.
It won't get dark for another hour and a half. It's like, well, okay.
Port Ontario in an hour and a half. Okay.
All right,
All right,
thanks.
well, the whole reason for this meeting now,